Hello again, and a very warm welcome to our first podcast of 2022 from Sweet Omagh Town Internet Radio. It's good to have your company, it's good to be here, and it's good to look at my co-presenter, Declan Ford. Happy New Year, Mr. Ford.
And the same to yourself and many more of them.
Christmas is as far away as it used to be.
Christmas is come and gone, and the new year, well, we're in 2022.
And you survived it anyway.
I survived it, and fighting fit for a whole new year. I love this time of year, because you make all kinds of resolutions and plans and hopes and dreams. And it's a time for looking back, but it's also, more importantly, a time to look forward.
Or the day you're in. How's that, maybe?
Yeah, exactly.
Do neither.
Exactly. Well, what's the agenda today?
Well, you remember just before Christmas, we were involved in the Street Arts Centre with the Plattermen reunion and the Rob Strong book.
That's right.
And during that time, we spoke to Leo Doran, Ray Moore, and Pat Chesters, and then Rob Strong on the phone. So there'll be a Plattermen theme in tonight's programme.
Oh, right.
First out of the trap, as I would say, is the barber.
The barber of Seville.
Yes. Leo Doran has kindly agreed to have a chat about just growing up in Market Street and the whole story about the band as well. Great storyteller, as you know, Declan. So we'll have that out tonight. But you remember going to the barber as a young lad? I'm sure you do.
Oh, I do indeed. Well, of course, I grew up in Uri, as you know. Though we spent my early days in Omagh and Mother Oliver in her class. But we then moved to Newry for about 6 or 7 years. And I remember distinctly in 1967 going to my first wake. It was the night that All You Need Is Love premiered on the television, a live performance by a well-known band called the Beatles, right? But the local barber, a relative of his died, and I made my way. I didn't know the person that died. And I just went down just to go to the wake. And I remember going in and then running out as fast as I could back home to watch the Beatles and All You Need Is Love. So every time I hear All You Need Is Love and the French National Anthem played, I'm back in Newry.
As a young child.
Creeping into this room and then running out as fast as I could.
My earliest memories of going to the barbers was that when you're a wee fella, you weren't tall enough to sit. Yeah, your back wasn't obviously long enough, so they put a wooden platform across the two arms of the seat. And then they sat you up on that, and you felt like a wee boy.
That's right, and you're always looking forward to the day when you could actually sit in the seat proper.
Yes.
Oh, and then there was one of the barbers was, all kinds of urban legends grew up about this man that would give you a bowl haircut, and the bowl would be placed in your head, and then shaved around or whatever, but I think that was all myth. I don't think that ever happened.
Well, a couple of things. My late father, when you did allow you to go to the barber, because he, through my mullet, they had a mail order catalogue on our house, and they decided to order a set of clippers. That's right. And we were all lined up on a Saturday, and these clippers come out. Torture in every way, and you looked like someone that was tortured as well. But then,
no. Do you not remember then later on, there came this kind of a little comb. It looked like a knit comb, but except it was almost, it had almost like a Stanley blade in it. And you could actually then...
trim your hair out with it, yes.
You could trim your hair with it.
Yes. Do you remember the crew cuts? And you got crew cut brush, like almost like the size of a bigger than maybe like a saucer almost. And you flicked your hair back with this crew cut brush.
That's right. No, I don't remember that now. I would never have had a crew cut in my life.
No.
But I used to take my father's Brill cream and the white grease of it and the smell of it, oh, how pungent. And actually would put that in my hair. And, you could never gauge exactly how much to put on.
Yes.
But I was convinced I was a sort of a Elvis Presley lookalike at one point, But you remember the thrill of when you left the barbers, you would run your hand up the back of your neck. It was almost like that. Remember the bacon that used to have the rind on it?
My father's motto before you left the house was, short back and sides and plenty of the top. Yeah. He wanted value for money.
Oh, absolutely. But you know, it's strange. I have been over now seeing the offspring in London, and my daughter happened to be around Brixton at one point. But the barbers are a completely different setup there. They are social, and the barbers will open to almost midnight.
Right.
And people will sit and chat and blather. It is so strange. The barbers here were slightly more sedate, I think. They were a great meeting place. But in London, it seems to be the American idea where people will sit and not getting their haircut, but just sitting I think the phrase is, they shoot the breeze.
Okay. I think they did that in Omagh for a long time too, because
Right.
you didn't want to be in a hurry to go in to wait on the barber these times, because if there was 3 or 4 in, you're looking maybe an hour and a half maybe,
Right.
to get
Right,
your hair
never
cut.
thought of that, yeah.
But I remember if you got your hair cut straight across the back, my dad would have did his nut pretty much.
Why was this?
Because it was teddy boy looking. You see, you had to have the proper, whatever way
Shorn up.
Right, exactly.
Right. Trimmed, like a
Trimmed,
well-trimmed head.
Absolutely. I remember sending me back in one time because I got my hair cut straight across the back. And
Right.
Back in to
You
get
were
it done.
short-changed.
Short change. He
And
felt
so you were short back inside.
his 1 and 6 was not well spent or well invested, so
Right.
back in to get it done. Short back and sides and plenty off the top was the order of the day. But sure.
That's it. As you said, value for money.
Indeed it was, indeed it does. But there were plenty of barbers in Omagh, and Leo talks very fondly of the trade, and his late father actually, when they came to Omagh, done ladies' hairdressing as well.
Right. That's right. You showed me a photograph.
Yes.
That's right.
A saloon.
A saloon. Hairdressing saloon.
Yes.
Isn't it? Excellent. Not a salon, a saloon.
Yes, and many good barbers in Omagh trained in Doran's.
Right.
Namely Larry Mohan, hope he's happy, and Kieran Sally would have been there as well, among others, but I can't remember offhand, but I remember quite a few of trainee barbers would have learnt their craft in Doran's.
I remember when I started to grow my hair a wee bit long when I was at school, got up to Kieran Sally, and he says, well, and I sat down, I said, have you a £5 note? I don't know, kind of looked at me, and he produced a £5 note from the drawer. I think it was blue, and there was a picture of the Duke of Wellington with his hair combed a certain. I said, I want that kind of haircut.
God. So in the 60s, it was all right up to that. Everything was fairly standard then when it was the advent of television and role models and stuff. They had all these sort of cut out posters. You could point to the nearest one.
right.
You got to have a quiff or whatever you wanted done.
That's right. All these kind of film stars or
Yes.
music stars or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then they got these sort of hair dryers in that had like a chisel in the end, sort of to give you
that's
a
right,
nice
right.
a nice parting of the sides and stuff as well.
Oh yeah, but the sad thing about barbers now, Donald, is I look, and when I look in the mirror, I kind of see kind of Robert Redford blonde, but I happen to look down and everything is strangely white. It is most peculiar. I think it's a trick of the light.
Yes, someone else's hair. So anyway, that's what it will be for the rest of it. What about your plans? Anything new over the new year?
Oh, I will be busy over the new year. I footer. I've learnt now to footer, and now, having reached a certain stage of life, I am just going to kind of just take it at my leisure, take it easy, relax. I think the phrase is chill out.
Chill out, man. I sold my car, since I seen you last.
So the Royce Rolls.
It's gone.
I noticed that.
It's gone to Cyprus, to a
To
private
Cyprus.
collector, yeah.
Right. As the man says, there's one born every minute.
Well, as long as he came my way, it didn't matter. It's in a boat bouncing along the ocean as we speak.
Uh-huh.
In a little, I don't know, it's like a box or kiosk or whatever they put in. It's sealed up,
Right.
shipped out to Cyprus,
Right, to Cyprus.
to a private museum. Oh, boy.
That's it.
It's a lucky car. Get out of the damn
Well,
garage.
I must admit, when I did see you trundling around the streets going 35 mile an hour,
Yeah.
and you looked like Frank Warren, you looked like a boxing promoter, and it had that look about it, that
Yeah.
just big solid thing, this thing growling as it went along.
3 ton of no confidence.
That's it, and just it was like a tank.
I'll tell you how bad a tank it was. When your petrol light goes on, wheat glow goes on when you're low on petrol.
Uh-huh.
Mine came on down the road, so I said, I'll jump into one of the local filling stations in town here. I'll put £30 in it.
Right.
The light didn't go out. So I said to myself, goodbye.
It was just
Time to go.
a bottomless pit.
Yeah, it was indeed. It was what it is, and it was a good car to have. But
It was.
was
You
what
certainly
it
got noticed in it.
is. Yes, for all it was worth, yes. It was. It got noticed because I ran out of petrol one day and had to push it up the Cookstown Road. But it's nice.
Oh, the shame of it. The shame of it. But anyway, look, go on, but it fulfilled the need.
There'll be another, or others.
I have no doubt there's something else, there's some other
others.
toy out there that you're going to buy.
Yes. Well, Damon Given and I, and yourself and I were talking one day about non-attachment.
Right.
See, I have no attachment to anything now in my old age.
Right.
I just get rid of everything.
That's right. Yes. Excellent. Well, you did. I think it was.
Except friends. I keep a few of them.
Yeah. Well, you know, the Royce Rolls is gone, and I hope it's happy.
Yes.
In its new home. At least it'll certainly see a lot more sunshine than it ever saw in County Doran.
Yes, well, the guy who's bought it has promised me, he says, you can come and see the car and look at the car when he gets it back to its original condition.
That would be very emotional. You know, it's like these people, you say, who rear a lion cub, and then they put it out into the wild, and then, you know, they go back 20 years later and this thing comes growling out at them, you know. I can see you going around Cyprus and this suddenly seeing this car and it's seeing you, and that, you know, and it'll be like that slow motion that you'll see it'll go towards you and you'll run towards it.
Reunited.
Reunited in the driving seat.
Good Lord, good Lord. Anyway, Mr. Ford, Happy New Year to you and your family, and we'll talk in the fullness of time, I
We
suppose.
shall indeed. I look forward to that.
And in the meantime, we shall sit back and enjoy the memories of Leo Doran, a cut above the rest.
I was born in Market Street, 50 Market Street, where the sandwich bar is now today. That was my home. My father had a barber shop there. The barber shop was part of the house. Like, you just come down the stairs and out under the shop and open up the shop from the inside out. At that time, it was all, everybody lived above the premises, really, you know. And there wasn't that many families in Market Street as such, like. Because the only ones that would have been there would have been Patsy Bogan and Noel McGrath. But the rest of them were all big businessmen. Next door to me would have been Johnny McElroy. There would be the Army and Navy stores, which I grew up in there. I mean, I had three sisters and I was only a boy. And my sisters, they were all older than me, right? So, of course, when I was coming through, you were expected to be a barber. You done what your father did at that day, you know. And to say, when I was born, there was probably a barber stumped on my backside, like at the same time, you know what I mean. So I continued on, went to school, and I went to CBS, and moved from there. Left at 14, no 11 plus or anything that time, because, as I say, fellas who didn't do 11 plus, parents were in business, so you're guaranteed a job type of thing. And then when I finished, left at 14, maybe a year later, this ordered to join St. Eugene's band, where the whole country was in St. Eugene's band. All the Turbos and the Chesters and all that, they all came through St. Eugene's band. Every band out of the committee this year here, all the brass men all played in St. Eugene's band. You know.
What was there music in your family, Leo? Or
My father would have been a violin player in his day. He was from Derry City, Wellington Street in Derry, and my mother, she was from County Derry. Yeah, I don't know much about her past as regards music, but I was always Brother Hamill in Brother School would have been, he put the harmony into me. We had to have a choir, 4-part harmony, and I always layered off the harmony parts, each on a separate place, and then we all came together. So I could pick harmony just off the top of my head, no bother at all. So that was very useful to be in the band. So when I got through the clarinet days in the band, started off then and acquired a saxophone from one Pat Chester had, belonged to Father Shields. And from that we took on, and Brent O'Donnell decided to have a wee band, a dance band, and played all the wee local halls about.
Is that the Melody Boys?
Melody Boys, yeah, that's right. And then we transgressed and moved on ahead onto Speedy was mentioned along the way, and he thought the Melody Boys was a bit soft, so we thought he was a great man for American groups, so we thought Platters would be a good name.
Right.
So that's how the Platters came about.
Not thinking about copyright at all?
Well, I mean, we were no danger to the Platters at that stage, like, you know what I mean? But anyway, carried on from there, and that's how the thing came about, like. And the band then started to get better and better. And then I had come to my father one day and I said, look, I think I would like to move out into playing the band full time now. If, you know, he was a wee bit annoyed, but I thought, well, if that's what you want to do, you go ahead and do it.
And were you an apprentice barber at that
Apprentice barber. I done 3 years at the Barbers, yeah. Because the 4 men, he had 3 men working for him as well at that time, so there was 4 men working in the shop.
Right.
And a strange photograph we have, it was a ladies and gents hairdresser. So he would have came from Derry, from a high class ladies and gents hairdressing place. And that's where he came to Omagh, opened a shop with a branch belonging to them called Woolman's.
Right.
So he came up here to work for them, and then he must have decided this would be a good town to have a wee shop himself. So that's how it all became apart. Then we finished up on Market Street, and that's where I carried on from there.
Right.
Up to present day.
Right.
So then, as I say, the band started to do very well. Brent O'Donnell was the instigator of the whole thing. I'm sure Pat or anybody told you that, didn't I? And the band done very well and took off. Various singers along the way. And the five of us nearly all dead now, all the bandsmen, as you know yourselves.
Well, you're still talking and standing.
We're still standing up, the three of us left down there, me and Ray and Pat and yourselves.
Was there a manager at that stage, or did Brendan look after
Brendan was the manager at that time, yeah. And then it moved on, and then as the band started to get more, then he decided he wanted to go back into his accountancy. That's what he wanted to do, to finish up. So then we became maybe more professional then. And we really took well, done very well now to come through the town, you know. And the man who owned the cinema in Omagh, he thought he would a lot of potential here. So Noel Donaghy, he thought he would take the band under contract, and then it turned out he was looking about 50% of the band, you know, the usual carry on. So that Pat Chester's more or less says no, and we cut that. So Pat more or less took over the management.
He had a
Pat had a better head on for that type of thing. You know.
So is that the Platters?
The Platters show band.
Parliament show band, or
no? They're just the Platters that time. There's a photograph taken in the Ulster Herald in 1958, right on this old stage of the Star Ballroom in Omagh, right? And Aidan O'Neill playing a big string bass, you know, and Artie and Pat and I and Ray were all sitting with wee music stands in front. We're sitting down now, and Brett O'Donnell sitting at the piano, and Artie McGlynn sitting beside him, about 14 and a half years of age, with a wee amplifier the size of that bag. Do you have something there beside you? But it was all dance music then, you know. So Star Ballroom was famous for the dances and the singing. And
what about your stage gear or costume? What did you have?
Well, at that time, no, we did. Put it this way here. When I used to have to leave on a Saturday night, 8 o'clock, to go to the play in the Star Ballroom. The Barber Shop didn't close at 10, so I had a run round, get changed on the wee suit we had that time, to play in the Star Ballroom. You know. But then got on, then the costumes got better, and suits got better, and everything else just bubbled up from there. Right. And very, very successful. Then when the band was in full flight, and later on in times then just got a wee bit iffy in between things, and things didn't go too well, so the next thing was a bit of a split in the band. And this is where Speedy and Artie decided they would depart company, and then we had to take next steps to get a refill for there, you know.
And that must have been a difficult time, because, you know, it's your livelihood.
Of course,
the longer you're off stage,
the
less money, or
of course. And then Jim Aiken was a great ambassador for the band. I remember standing up in his wee office in Royal Avenue. And we were all gathered inside the wee office where he was, and he said, "Now, don't you forget here, boys, I'm giving out £25 a week here." He was a teacher at that time. So that was the start of the full time taking in. He made a great job from then on. Jim's a great man now.
And did he got your dates?
Then he got all the dates. He sorted the whole thing out then. He was a full time manager then. Another guy called John McGovern, he would be his right hand man, and he would have kept the thing right. He would travel with us as well, and he would have done all the business part of it. We just played away, you know.
Right.
But very successful, I must say. Yeah.
So when you were playing, if you were playing, say, in Cork, did everybody travel by bus?
Well, we had a big coach anyway. I mean, a lot of the early days, the dates were all over the bloody place, you know.
Uh-huh.
Came from Galway to Cork to Derry to Skillen, you know what I mean. Then as we got better, then the dates were all tied in. Then you done maybe a weekend away in Cork or Kerry or Killarney or all down in. It's very, 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 very popular down there.
Following a route that.
Well, we say when we were in Cork, we kept maybe 3 dates in that area. Just travel one way down and stay locally with hotels there. We would have stayed there regular. Then we travelled to 2 of them hotels, and we would have booked in there as like a bed and lunch type of thing instead of bed and breakfast.
Right.
We'd put it away at the back of the hotel. There's a noise.
Right.
Looked after as well that way, you know.
And were there any cities that you liked playing and that you looked forward to?
Well, we were very, very successful all over Ireland. All over Ireland, like Cork down that end there. Cork was really big for us down there. Yeah.
Right.
They even had a on the footpath. They had a star on the footpath.
Oh, lovely.
With the Plattermen, the Freshmen, Clipper Carton, and another band as well, the Dixies, which was from Cork.
Oh.
Dixies were the big band in Cork.
Right.
You played in Cork. You done it was a 4-hour dance. They played the first hour, we played the second. We played the third, and then we played the last.
Right.
This is the way with all bands, you know. So we would always fill the place down there.
So you must have developed a kind of camaraderie with the other bands and the other.
Oh, you did, surely. All the bands on the road, yeah. You never, there was over 600 bands at one time, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
So you never went out without meeting bands along the way, you know. Mm-hmm. And they all sort of recognised each other, you know.
Yeah.
But we were very, very, very well looked after, I must say now.
And did you go over to England with the Plattermen?
Oh, we went to England, certainly. Oh, we went to during that time. Over there.
Because everything was...
Caldy, you played all the Irish clubs over there. You know, the Blarney Club and Cricklewood and all them places.
What was Cricklewood like?
That was a double venue. They had like a Keeley band once, but it's like a big hall, sort of split into 2 parts of it. They had a Keeley band on one end of it, and then you had a show band on the other end. And the people could commute between the 2.
Playing at the same time?
Both at the same time, oh yeah. But I mean, there was a huge hall, maybe 2,000 people there.
Right.
So they could mingle about to each other, you know. That's how it worked. You know.
Well, tell me, were there any bands that would stand out for you that you looked on as potential rivals of the?
Well, our biggest, Johnny Quigg from Derry was the man. This is the reason we had this big van. It was minibus we had. Travelling home one night, Johnny Quigley was ahead of us on the road, and he had this minibus. It was a big bus compared to what we had. We had a Comer van.
Aye.
But I always admired. They had a great band. I mean, they were well versed, way ahead of any other band because the music from Derry City players were all top class men. Like, you know what I mean? So one night we were driving 9 a.m. and that's when I decided here. Tell you what, seeing me spend so much time on the road, we needed a wagon that would be suitable. So we had a big from Ballymena. We got the coach built. Special built for us.
Rights in Ballymena.
Rights in Ballymena, yeah. And 13 seats in all
And aircraft seats.
all airplane seats, yeah.
Right. You must have been the envy of every other band.
Well, I mean, and then the Plattermen right up beside of it. There was a big white van.
This is PR.
And then Ireland swings on the back of it.
Right.
After Brian called me the record, you see.
That's right.
But no, it was just a great life. I enjoyed every minute of it. And,
Well, when did you leave the Plattermen, Leo?
when my father died, my mother died in October, and my father died 6 months later.
Right.
And I had this idea in my head. I was married, well married at that time. Family was getting bigger.
Aye.
So I had always notion that there has to be a stoppage somewhere along the line.
Aye.
So my father's death was the key one that really decided me I'd have to go back to the barber shop, run the business, and leave the band scene.
Aye.
At that time. So shortly after that, then that the band took on extra players like John Trotter and Rob and Martin McCarthy. Well, they were Al McCarthy and Rob was on the band right at the stage.
Aye.
Yeah. And then they took off in a different vein of music altogether.
That's when it became more kind of rock music or rock.
The change away from what we were just very commercial, you know.
Aye.
What I mean. Aye.
Well, why was that? Was that because of the personnel that were drafted in? Or was there an undercurrent of saying, look, it's time to change?
Well, I'm not sure now. I'm going to tell you the truth on that point of view. There was no animosity when I was leaving. I was leaving for a certain purpose, and everybody just realised that. There wasn't, you know. And then after that, and I'm not sure how the whole thing changed over, but they really
It's just evolution.
they took off big time. Like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I finished up after I was out of the band for 2.5 years. Paddy Phillips came to join me with the tall men.
Right.
So I asked the boss what she think. Oh, she said, go ahead, you might as well. So Paddy Phillips, Sean, and Aidan McPeak, and Damien Given, and the band was fine.
Right.
Took off. Hugo was singing, of course, the wee man from Mr. Band.
That's right, Hugo.
2.5 years, and then
that was more country oriented, was it?
probably more native time. We what we class ourselves as more what do you call it? Progressive country. we weren't bad band now, in all fairness. Like.
And were you glad to get? Did you miss that kind of that entertainment or that?
Well, it was completely changed for me anyway from the other band, you see.
Yeah.
But,
All right.
and then Hugo made this record called Dear God, and it took off like a bloody jet plane. So I had 2 good years with him now, him and Pio. And, Paddy Phillips is a good fella, him and Sean both are good players now.
Sean the drummer.
Very drummer, aye. He was some drummer now, but Paddy very intelligent fella, great musician. He had a Hammond organ
Right.
with all the studs, you know.
Oh yes.
So he'd be playing the feet, playing the instrument, and singing
At the same time.
You know, super guy. A lot of time for him. I was very sorry to hear about him dying. Tony was, and he was Sean's.
That's right.
He was his pupil, so he showed up well too. You know what I mean?
Right, just sad.
Well, there you go.
You know, and are there any gigs that would stand out with the Plattermen that you see you left and said this? We can't do any better. This was just
Well, we held the record in Royal Arms
for
Crowdways on the
Right.
box night. I was way up near the 2,000 mark now, as far as I remember. They were pushing them on the front door and they were falling out
right.
the back door just that time. Yeah.
And would there have been an atmosphere in the audience? You know.
Oh, great! Oh, phenomenal altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, the people just even Ray Moore said to me one time. He says, "There's 50 years later, people still talk about the Plattermen."
Yeah.
So it has to be sung. We love to behind the whole thing, you know.
Yeah.
But it's an important part of my life, and I'm glad I done it. I have no regrets on it at all. One way or another. We all done fairly well out of it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, then without delving into kind of finances, now, when the band was at its peak, that how would the money or the pay, we'll call it,
Well,
say
see,
the ordinary man in the street? I mean,
of course, I was.
streets ahead, or
Way ahead, surely going out. I mean, the fella used to work for my father. I think he was earning about £8 a week
yeah,
as a barber, like full-time barber. And I was getting maybe wages, maybe Pat was sending it in, it might have been 50 quid for
right,
the weekend we were doing, you see.
right, which is
So, I mean, I felt sorry for him. He was saying, by the way, Pat, that's it. You know, he was, saying my father must be a hard,
right.
hard grafter. So that's what he was paying.
Yeah,
But money at that time was good. Then it was seeing with the punts and the pounds was level. You know what I mean?
yeah. When you went back to the barber's trade, was there ever any time in the first couple of years before you joined the town when you said, I just wish I was back on stage?
Not really. No. I was full time then. I used to say I had a very great family life. Growing up, my wife, she's a wonderful person.
Yeah.
And we finished up with 12 children.
Yeah.
And the whole thing. And but I mean, I met her through the bands as well.
Right.
We all met our wives through the bands, as you know yourself.
Well, you were very lucky that was able to separate the two.
Oh yes, well I had to do that anyway. See,
I've
yeah.
had my day with it. I loved it.
Yep.
Time to move on and
Move on. Yeah, that was.
take the responsibility. Then
Yeah, of
with
course,
the shop
yeah.
and that, you know.
But I've no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I met a great crowd of fellas in the band too.
Aye.
Unfortunately, like Aidan O'Neill and Billy McGinty, you know, Johnny Murphy, and even Brian Call, and Artie and Speedy, you know, they're all deceased now, like today, like. You know.
That's it. Were there any of the songs recorded that you particularly liked?
Well, the one Speedy done now was Shake, his one record that he made well. Like.
Right.
And we done it very well, I must say. It seemed to do pretty good too.
Where did you do the recordings? Did you do them in Belfast?
Belfast, yeah.
And was it Solomon's or who?
Saloons, God knows you've asked me to even shoot myself. Right.
I know
There's a fellow called Sel Fay.
Yes.
He was the engineer.
Right, he was
on that track, yeah.
Folk music
And he put the words to the song Ireland Swings.
He did.
It was England Swings.
That's
That was originally, see.
Oh, that was.
So he just changed.
The fellow who wrote King of the Road.
Same guy.
Yeah.
So he changed the lyrics from English Swings to Ireland Swings. So we got away with it.
Well, tell me then, what about did you ever play the Knocknamo?
Oh, that's certainly okay.
What was it like as a venue?
Big venue too as well. And I tell you a good night about Knocknamo. The very man you would know very well being RDG. Right? BBC or ITV were doing a show at Knocknamo, and we were playing that night. And RDG was a contest called the Best Mod Dress.
Right.
And RDG won it.
Right.
And the girl he was with, she was dressed the same way.
Right.
And the prize was a Roses for Lee LP and Brian Clough. And I remember giving it to Artie, and I said, "Hey Artie, I don't think you'll enjoy it today. Yeah, you won it."
You won it.
And that was Knocknamo, yeah.
Well, in the Plattermen, tell me about the practicalities of it. You know, when did you rehearse?
We rehearsed in the Royal Arms mostly, and then we would rehearse along the way to dances. We had a record player in the van, which was on a balance thing.
Ah, right.
So the boys would have learned the words of the songs, and we'd have heard the backing and behind.
Right.
And then Ray would have he'd been working out arrangements for what the band parts were, you see. So this we routine ourselves what we worked on, and after Ray maybe 2 hours before the gig, we'd have had maybe an hour's practice as well, maybe doing a couple of new numbers or whatever.
Right.
Well, you practice when you could practice.
Aye.
And as I say, when you were travelling, you had the extra help of the record player in behind.
And the comfort as well.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And when you played venues then, did you have sort of set lists that you would perhaps chop and change, or certain songs you wouldn't play, say in Cork, that you would play in Belfast or Dublin? Or?
Yeah, well, we would have played for 5 hours.
Right. And not repeat one song?
And maybe a very rare song would be repeated in between times. Like. So I mean, 9 o'clock to 2. And then the story in Doran, the man, I forget his name now, but he ran the ballroom there. Started at 9 o'clock and finished at 2. And the music had to be played on the button of 9. There was a clock on the wall,
right.
And he'd be standing on the stage or the balcony,
watching you.
And no matter what, get something going there, doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
Get a noise or something going, because he wanted something played at 9 o'clock at the button.
Right. Well, in those days, was there no relief band?
No, in the early days we didn't have relief bands. But then as the thing progressed, then we'd played a lot of stars who were coming in. You know, the like of Michael Holiday.
Story of My Life.
The Smutties, all these other bands coming in.
Right.
Tremolos, bands get, and we were in the main band, but they would have had a guest spot in it as well, like the Bachelors.
Right.
Things like that there.
But did you have to do backing then?
Oh no. They had their own stuff there. They'd done their own thing. Yeah.
Right.
But sometimes they would have, so like a Megan Holly now, when he arrives on, his manager came out with the big folder of music.
Right.
But where are you going with that? So I think Artie and Ray would have sort of filled on the boy. He just threw that out the door, so it was never been used anyway. So he would have sang whatever his popular songs were then.
Right. And a great voice, hadn't he?
Bing
Crosby sounded like.
Oh, a real Bing Crosby job.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And would you ever meet the likes of Rory Gallagher in those early days?
Rory Gallagher was coming through in our time too. Yeah.
He was playing with the show band.
He did the very early days. But I mean, he was just a step to the left of what we were doing, type of thing. You know, he was really a big influence, a lot of music in this town, in this country here. You know what I mean? a really big following as well down at Cork, you know.
Of course, there's the dispute: was he born in Cork or Ballyshannon?
This is it. You see, this is a toss of a coin there again. Very again, yeah. But a lot of places very, and Skilling too. All around the north here, we had great venues up here altogether. Like,
did the onset of the Troubles obviously change things?
Changed things. And a couple of bad experiences there too. Travelling through in the night, various things going on.
Aye.
You just had to be very wary of where you were going, type of thing,
Aye.
And there was a few incidents where you were just hit and miss. You hear gunshots going off behind around the place. You know what I mean?
And of course, the Miami massacre must have absolutely.
That knocked the whole thing in the head.
Terrified.
Terrified me, yes. Good God, poor fellas, like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then, like the Joe Dolan and Boyer and everybody said they're all huge bands, like, you know. And of course, then Big Tom, he was
still the king.
Brian College to say, "Where's Tommy tonight?" I was anywhere near Ross.
That's right.
He closed. You don't want to open the door just to forget about it. That was great. There's a lot of great bands about now. But to say, who else could I mention there at the same time? A lot of bands, say down Waterford, Kilkenny, every band.
Boyer from Waterford.
Boyer from Waterford, around there. His father's buried out in Omagh, you know.
Right. That's right.
The graveyard in Omagh, yeah.
He died outside the town hall or something.
He must have died over. He was doing he was an opera singer of some sort.
Right.
So he died here, obviously, and they buried him out. Jack McGill, my friend, would be a local historian.
Oh yeah.
But he knows where the grave is out there, you know.
My goodness. And Brendan Boyer, he's gone now himself.
Brendan's gone now too. Yeah.
You know, but wasn't it strange that that show band scene just exploded? I suppose in the late, you would say that maybe the late 50s, right to the.
From the 50s, and I mean, there's no drinking bars.
Orange.
You know, hotels. Once the liquor started to roll, then the whole band scene changed. Then obviously, because there was no drink allowed. You'd be smelling your breath down to the door.
Right.
Some of the dance halls, priests would have been.
That's
very much with a stick standing out.
That's right.
Get you away from the gear.
Rummaging in the bushes to see who or what was there.
Of course. You know what I mean? But I mean, the show band kicked in. There was the band in Dublin. It was called Air Gill, and they were the resident band in the Four Seasons in Dublin. And they're super band as well. Like, you know.
Were they a jazz band or?
Well, they were very, very, very good. All top players. Yeah. You can hear them. We'd have to be changing. The resident band would be playing. The visiting band would have been in behind changing, and then you'd hear the band playing. You thought, that's just you better be on your best behaviour than your voice. But that's the way it was then times, you know.
Yeah.
Go back, Leo, was Eugene's band a big influence on producing a lot of show bands and this?
Oh, it was, without a doubt. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, the polka dots and ourselves, Derek and the Sounds, and a lot of them fellas all come through from Eugene's band. They all learned the brass instruments there, really. Clarinets and saxophones, trumpets and trombones. That was the main brass section for any band.
Right.
So those four instruments were all in St. Eugene's, you know. And they were very instrumental too as well, and facing all the boys who did play in them as well, you know. We've all them to thank for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're 140 years going now, and they're still going strong. Yeah.
And when you joined the St. Eugene's at the very start, was it? Be honest, was it for the social side of it as a teenager, or the music?
No, just the music of it.
Yeah.
I remember Joe O'Donnell would have had a blackboard in a wee hut down the bottom where the way in Barber there now, and you just showed you notes. You wrote the notes on the blackboard, right. And they call you and the time of each note, and then down, so you learned it off.
Right.
And then the very special day, I received a clarinet and 2 halves in a brown paper bag.
Right, and that was.
And I ran down home to my mother and said, "Look what I've got here." But that was a big clarinet.
Right.
And I played and played and played and played and played and that.
Lovely.
Until I got fairly good on at the same time. But, and then with the saxophone, and coming along behind, the two were all very similar. So Pat Chester telling the same. Whereas Ray, he would have played a euphonium in the band. You know what I mean? And then he even had a trumpet.
Flugelhorn and all, you know.
Yeah, good. Yeah. But there was a story there, right?
Yeah. Good days. Were good days. Good days.
Well, to say, I never done 11 plus. See, when I went to Broad School, I done first, second, third, fourth, and then fifth was Burns class, which was the 11 plus class. Then if you weren't doing 11 plus, you moved into number 6, which was Hamill's class. So he had maybe 56 pupils in Hamill's class. So to say, a lot of my mates was all in there, Lawrence Rush and B.B. Breen, all the boys, all the crowds were all in there. And left school at 14. If your parents or your father had a business or was an occupation, he was just deemed to see if I was a barber, stamped my ass today, I went on there, like type of thing. So at 14 I couldn't get away. Like. But I survived my whole 14 years on there. And then I say in Hamill's class, I was a ruthless man and very tight. A very tight shop. But he had a choir, and very, very excellent choir, and each section had maybe four section harmony, we were singing harmony, right? And when they all came together, then we taught individually, different times, then they all came together, the choir was first class. Well, I was into singing harmony, and he more or less put that into me. And from then on, in all my show band days, if I was ever doing backing or anything, I was always no problem in the harmony, just dropped into naturally to me, you know. So I put that down to him, but all I put down to him, and I never had any bother with him.
Had you a school band or anything at those days as well, or not?
No. The only band I was in was Mother Oliver's band, which is at the top of the road, up in Thornhill Park. There's a wee hut up there. A lot of people of my generation would have went. I think I was hanging out a triangle, I think was the first thing I was handed, between a tambourine and a couple of sticks doing battle together and a bell or whatever it was, you know.
Yeah.
But fond memories of that now.
Yes.
My father came from Derry originally, and he worked in a very high class hairdressing business in Derry called the Wilmans. So then they opened a branch in Omagh, and he was, as far as I can make out, he was sent up to Omagh to manage the shop or work in the shop, which would have been above the Carlisle bookshop. And that's where the Barber Shop was at the time. Big ladies and gents hairdressing salon, like, it was very high tech, like. So I'd imagine after maybe a year and a half or so, he decided he thought it would be maybe a good place to start up with his own business. So he given his notice there, obviously, and he crossed the street into Bridge Street, and he rented a room out of one of the houses along Bridge Street. And we adverts I've seen in the paper that a good friend of mine, Jackie McGill, unearthed while he was doing a feature for the Eugene's band. He spotted these wee adverts in the paper and he cut them out and gave them to me as a wee keepsake. Me and I was good friends. Like. And then he moved then on down to maybe 2 or 3 doors from the shop he was in to another premises. And then from there he moved to Market Street, where I was born in 1941. And I was born there, and I was born at home. I had 3 sisters, I was the youngest. Elise, Gertie and Kay were my 3 sisters' names. And we lived in a house and had a very happy childhood. But I had very few families in Market Street. And my youth was all spent around Campsie and all around that end of the town. Next door to me would have been Johnny McElroy's Army and Navy stores, and they lived in there. And then subsequently, his daughter and son went to Dungannon. Apparently, his wife had a shop in Dungannon, a shoe shop in Dungannon. So, in later years, when the parents died, Elizabeth and John, who were youngsters, they moved down with father. And she finished up then owning McElroy's shop, then a big modern day shop. And her brother then used to do chiropody and behind, and that was it. And the only other, Patsy Bogan would be my playmate, and Noel McGrath, Sean McGrath, and then the other end of town then would have been Slevin's chemist, the young fellas there coming up through there. And then on around the corner in Dublin Road would have been Jack McGinn and his son Colin and a couple of other young ones there too. But as regards having neighbours, McCann's, as I say, the wee paper shop, they were very friendly. We would just would visit each other's houses. We all played together, you know. But lovely times, great memories.
And did the barbers in that town? Do you remember the other barbers who were sort of competition with your dad, or had you all got the regular customers? Or
oh, we all had regular customers. Yes, but our shop had been the biggest shop. Same, my father employed 3 men, 3 full-time barbers, like. And then I come in as an apprentice to sweep up and do the what else has to be done, do the messages, you know. But the shop is unique in this way that the fact that we lived there, we had a radio in our shop, one of the really old radios, but it was connected then with a speaker into the kitchen. See, so the radio would have serviced the kitchen as well. But there's another service as well, saying the like of the Grand National Day. Every that time it was always a great event, and most of the men who worked in there joined the shops all around us, and then was a pub as they down the street, wasn't too far away. But on a Grand National Day, I would be standing at the radio. The shop would have been full of people. No haircut would be done. It was like a bookie shop, and everybody would have maybe had a wee bet on, 6 each way, or no small amounts of money. And I had all the names of the horses written down, and I was counting them off as they were falling. And then you would stand there and somebody said, "How's this Royal Town going?" I say, "You fell at the last fence there, John." So it was a great day's entertainment that way.
Yes. But it was a social thing then. People met in the barber shop to chat as well.
Oh yes, big time, yeah. So I mean, the farming. See, you won't be in the farming town. On a Saturday, huge amount of men been in barber shops, all getting shaved in for their Sunday services, wherever they were going to the church or chapel or whatever they were going, and they wouldn't have a shave for a week. So my job has been the apprentice. You had to soap up the gentleman concerned. Well, my father would have been cutting somebody's hair, and I had to rub that soap for a period of time it took him to cut the hair, and then we would transfer. He would come over and shave the man, and I would finish, swept off and cleaned all the man down.
Your father would use a cutthroat and stuff?
Oh, cutthroat. He was an excellent, he was a real master. Matter of fact, he used to have a wee business on the side. He would actually do service razors for men who had cutthroat razors because they couldn't sharpen them themselves, you know. And he would have had a big drawer full of cutthroat razors, all named and all, that he would have had to do for men. And he had what they call an oil stone, which is a long piece of stone where he had actually honed the blades on it. And then when he would just do it, he would flighten it. He could just be finger and thumb twisting it as he swooped, you know. Then he had the long strap, which took all the edges off the edges of the blade. And he would test the blade then on his hand, on his finger. He just knew by the catch on his skin it was just enough. Another 2 rubs, the thing was gone. So it was just unique. Yes. And he had the reputation of being one of the finest connoisseurs of doing a razor of anybody else. Right. Oh, an excellent day, a first-class barber too of all kinds. But to say, a lot of barbers come through the shop as well, a lot of other wee men.
A lot of people trained there.
A lot of other men trained there. A lot of people would be well known about Omagh Town.
Larry Mohan trained with you?
Larry Mohan came in as a young boy in the shop with me. Yeah, he stayed for 22 years with me. Kieran Sally would have worked in our shop. And a fellow called Mickey McGuigan from Fintna, he was there for about 8 or 10 years. And another fellow called, his nickname was Whitey McFadden. And all them men would have been maybe getting their dinner in our house. My mother, God rest her, would have been, when she made dinner, everybody in the shop would get fed at the same time. Like.
Was your mother, was she Omagh?
No, she was County Derry. She was from Cloddy, County Derry. And I never knew enough about her family, funny to say, down through the years, you know. I had more connection with my father in Derry because he was, his family all lived in Wellington Street in Derry, where I would have went for my holidays and whatever, yeah, small time. But wonderful times, I have long fond memories of there. But the town, the street itself was, across from us was J.B. Anderson's, and all the like of Paddy Laird and ones like they worked in there. And they all come over to our shop to get there.
George Burns, remember him?
George Burns, yes. George was the storeman. And George was an entry now, which is now a boutique, just right next door to the shops opposite me now, where the monument is now, the glass monument there. Well, there was an entry there, was always classed as Anderson's entry. And George Burns had a job of, they had 5 shops in a row, and you could walk down through each from the inside. They're all connected together. And they had big iron gates in each one, 2 big poles on either side, and they had to carry the gates and get through together. That was his job, as well as driving a van and doing the furniture. And Santa Claus, always in ends, Parent John. And the old men all their shops, everyone
yes,
from
yes.
it.
I remember Harvey McGrath, remember your mum taking me in there?
Harvey McGrath, that's right, yeah. And Sean McGrath, God love him, he was at his end beside my shop, looked after the Omagh bomb.
Yes.
I'm in Libby next door, Libby Rush.
And you had a miracle escape that day?
Oh, I'm awful without a doubt with it.
Tell me about it.
Well, no, my daughter called Lisa, who worked in the optician shop above us, there, was getting married. And she had arranged to get married and with the priest and all. And everything was fine. So about 2 months later, one of my elder daughters, who lived in Gannon, was having a christening, and we were all up at the christening. And the priest there was going around afterwards talking to everybody, and he came over to myself and my wife, and he was congratulating her and the young new grandchild. And I said, any more events coming up? But she said, well, as a matter of fact, my daughter get married now, shortly. I always got, when she get married, I might send her a wee card, you know. And she says the 15th of August. And it was just a pause, and he says, oh, are you sure now? But that's Mr. Doran. She says, yeah. Well, he says, you better check that out again for as a holiday of obligation. And they don't really have weddings on those particular days. And I said, I'd advise you very seriously to go and check it out. So long story short, we landed back home again, and Lisa was on the phone to the priest, obviously. And I could hear her saying, that date for my wedding, for, is that all right? And next thing you could hear them take a breath to say to the phone, gee, I forgot all about that. What are we going to do? And she said, well, I'm up and running here now. I mean, what are we going to do? Gosh, I said, here, you leave it with me. So an hour later, he rang back. He had been on to the phone to Bishop Daly in Derry and explained the whole situation. And he decided to say, well, seeing you made the mistake, we'll let it go. But you'll have to go to Drumragh instead of the Sacred Heart, if that's agreeable. So that's how it turned out. So we were in Drumragh at the time, 3:10. We were actually halfway through the service in the church in Drumragh with 120 guests who all would have been in and around Omagh that day, and their families and all the rest of it. So it was one of them days you thought, well, what could have been? I mean, the outcome would have been horrendous all right.
Doesn't bear thinking about that.
And then Sean McGrath and Libby were at my door. I had a sign on my door saying closed due to my daughter's wedding. And that's how it turned out. Both of them lost their lives. And it could have been, as I say, she worked in opticians. I had a daughter working in Hardy Corey's, another girl working in uptown as well. They all were always told, go to daddy's shop if anything goes wrong. So there's no end to it, is there?
No.
Yeah.
No.
But thank God it worked out.
Yeah. Be thankful for all that.
But that was that, of course, yeah. Well, that's on the bad side, there's a lot of things good side. Not the funny things too that happened, you know. I can tell you one particular time there was a corner down below me was owned by J. Maguire, and the old pub, there was a flight of stairs down to the lower toilets, right? At that time there was an odd bomb scare going on about, there was different things left about places, suspect packages or what have you, you know. So we were working in the shop one day, Larry and myself, and not sure what day it was, it was maybe a Thursday, could have been. I think a policeman looked in the door and he says, sorry gentlemen, you're going to have to move out here. We have a bomb scare. And I more or less says, well, whereabouts are we talking about here? And he says, it's in the Cozy Corner. It's down on the stairs, going down to the bottom of the corner. I said, you'll have to get out. But he says, it's all right, you're okay for a few minutes yet, but you'll have to go. So I finished up, Larry finished up as a customer. And they both left, and I had just almost near the end of my man, so I closed the door and pulled down the blinds and finished the man off. And told him that I'd been a bomb scare. You see, I felt a wee bit nervous now, young country fella. So when I went to go let him out, I just happened to wee glance out the window and hear the robot was coming up the street. You know, and your man nearly filled the trousers at the end of the day, and the sweat was blinding him. And I said, no, look, tell you what, we'll go out to the very back of the shop. The shop was bigger at the time. I said, look, there's 4 or 5 doors away from here. There's we're not in any danger, I'm sure. So we sat down away and listened, and the next thing I heard the bump, you know, that the thing went off. And I said, there you are, and they must have got it sorted out. So I said, we'll wait a few minutes first to see what's going on. So I had another wee pick out through the door, and here the boy with the big armoured suit on was coming up the street. You know. That really put that tin hat on for my friend. So give it another 10 minutes, and next thing I heard a car going past. So I think that was the all clear. So I looked up, opened the blinds up, and everything was sort of starting to move back together. And I opened the door, and your man never even spoke to me, just ran out the door. Out, and I never ever seen him since after that.
But isn't it strange how over the passage of time we took all that for granted, didn't we?
Of course, it was a dumb thing. We lost the front of the shop 4 or 5 times altogether over the years. There was one up at the Market Street where the electricity board used to be. That shattered the whole windows and all and everything at that time as well. Yeah. And there was 2 or 3, and then the one at Campsie, Mickey Ward's paint shop. We were all standing watching down there at the barrier. You know, looking over. Curiosity, she didn't be standing there at all.
Like one under Dan McGettigan's entry as well.
Dan McGettigan's, that's right. Dan McGettigan's, Mills's shop.
My brother, somebody came into the bar, he worked in the bar, Dermot worked in the bar at that time.
Is that right? Oh, that's right, I know Dermot very well, yeah.
And somebody customs said there's a van blocking the entry, right? So Dermot went out and tried to get the van moved, pushed, got back in, there was a phone call in the bar to say there was a bomb in the equipment.
Oh, God.
And then the van tried to get it in the road. But that shows you how
oh, of course.
You know, there's a lottery.
It's a lottery, yeah. And I say, in the hallway of our wee shop, you seen that photograph there, 2 doors, a front door and an inside door. Yeah. Well, one particular day, a man was leaving the shop and he came back in and he says, you think there's something sitting in your hall out here? I wouldn't be too fussy about it at all. And it was a cassette, remember the old ones you had put in the car, big 8-track thing?
Yeah,
big VCR. It was standing very, very up against the door to get out there, inside the hallway. So I thought, oh no, this can't be good here. So I stepped over, trying to close I had no phone, and I rang the police station. I said, look, there's a suspect. I was actually in my shop. Could you get somebody to look about it here? And that's okay. I come back in again, very carefully stepped over this thing. And Larry finished off as a man. Larry back again, God love him. And but he says, he'd been in the bar obviously before he had a few drinks on him. Like. And he says, what's wrong here? And I says, no, you have to stay here now because there's a wee thing out the hall I wasn't too happy about, you know. Where? I says, there's there now. And before I could say boo, your man had to drive with his foot and set this thing spinning up into the air in slow motion and landed out in the middle of the road, right? Now the barrier was across the road at the bottom of this time. You had to go down the street and turn and come in. And I nearly had a heart attack when your man done it. And he said, yeah, I said, nothing wrong with that at all, you know. And next thing I seen this car coming down the street. There was a woman driving it and 2 or 3 children in it. And I'd done a 3-point turn over the top of this cassette while everybody held their breath, you know. And then away she went. So about 10 minutes later, two police come strolling down the street, hand behind their back. I believe it's a wee bit of weather here, sir. I says, well, we've got a bit of an object here. He says, where is this thing? And I says, there's out on the foot. He says, how did you get out there? And I says, you haven't inquired with this gentleman here. So he went across it and he just put his heel on it. That was all over.
God, Leo, you couldn't make it up. You couldn't make it up.
No, that's the true fun fact.
You know, as I said earlier, we lived through that and we grew up through that.
Yeah.
Became normal. Thankfully, hopefully those days are behind us. Well, tell me, when you walk up Omagh Street now, what do you think?
I would very rarely meet anybody I know on Omagh Street. Yeah. And I could have named off all the shops from end to end. And I was even talking to a wee man on it about like if Ira Love, you know, and Gussie Haynes and all that down there, and Ronnie Henley's Swedish shop, and the Thompson's, the Irish souvenir shop. You've seen all them photographs, I'm sure you know all that crack. And J.B. Anderson's right the way up and all the way down around the corner. And on around the Dublin Road corner, at the very end of it was Jack McGinn's big house, which is still there. And next door to that, before you get to Aiken's Garage, was a place called the Kiernan Hatcheries. Right? And apparently, this was my playground again. But there was a power cut. There was all the power went off on Omagh. And the Kiernan Hatcheries would have big thousands of wee day old chicks and big trays under heated lamps. And when the power went off, of course, these things were all very vulnerable. And the man there, I would just knew him as John, and never knew it. I used to be in there regular. And I called in anyway, and he was out the back with one of these big trays, and he was just throwing the wee chicks against the wall for the dog of the day, you know what I mean? And I stood and watched that man, and had nightmares for years after it. He was being humane, really, by doing what he was doing, because there were thousands of these things, you know what I mean? Pure wee things like that. Yeah. For a young child to see it like that, you know what I mean? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the street was great street, you know. J.B. Anderson's.
Do you remember Davy Young then? Do you remember?
Of course, Davy Young was called the Sweeteries. The Sweeteries, yeah. He had a barber shop as well, and character. And town full of characters then too as well. I mean, every one of them. Yeah. Davy has a reputation of being a real practical joker, you know, I'm sure. Yeah. But as I say, the barber shops, the only one. Davy Young had a barber shop. It was only us and Davy Young in Market Street. Jack Strumble was in Campsie. Lawrence Bradley, Bridge Street. Joe Millen on High Street. Sean Campbell on John Street. We had Tommy McAvoy and around Saloon Avenue. And then a man called Bobby Booth was about in Campsie. He came in later on down the lane. I don't know if he's on that list or not you've seen there, but there were 8 barber shops. And we used to always meet in our house, our shop, on a Wednesday. They're having a meeting, every yearly annual meeting, to discuss the price of haircuts.
Uniform thing you all decided to
and they all came to our house, that's when we all met in our shop. And then they discussed the price of.
Did you find take a Wednesday off today?
Half day Wednesday was the barber shop. Monday to Friday, Monday to Saturday, 10 o'clock closing on Saturday. From 9:30 to 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. And as I said, it was for all the shaving, for all the farmers and that.
Was there a union like a barber?
Well, it was like it was a competition really. They all fought to put the price up for threepence was going to be a disaster. Like. But it was always high argumentative sort of conversation went on, but it's all together, which is silly, you know.
Of course it is.
It should have went together, yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah, at the end of the day. Yeah. But
do you remember your father doing ladies' hair as a child?
I done, yes, yeah. But I mean, the ladies' hairstyles sometimes is very, very primitive. There's only these waves, big clumpy waves in, and the hair would have been shampooed and dried, and with a big net on. And it just was an ordinary hairdryer to start, you know, very, very, but not for a very long now, only for a short period of time, and then it became an all gent shop, you know. Yeah. As ladies started waking up. There was a big shop, ladies up above us, was called Burke's. Avril Burke and I can't remember his son's name now, John. And they had a hairdressing saloon. I believe one of the first ones on the main street, I would have thought. You know. And then you had Alan Paul came on the scene, which was a big English crowd, you know what I mean?
Right.
And they thought they were going to clean the town out, you know. But it didn't happen, obviously, at the same time, you know.
They don't factor for the brand loyalty they had right over, like in a rural town like that, people have their customers, I suppose.
Of course, so. Every barber shop has its own customers. And even if something that when you're retired, in my own case, I retired in 2006 up in Johnson. But 2 months before I retired, I made it aware of everybody, all my customers, that I was leaving. And I had a man there that cut the hair for 40 years, like, you know, and they're nearly crying, where are we going to go now? And I would have sent them all down to Larry Moan or to Lawrence Kelly, or all spread them out, you know. That's how it turned out them times. Like. Then when Larry died, he just died very suddenly, and all his men were all left headless chicken, didn't know where to go, to be right, you know.
Now we've got plenty of Turkish barbers and stuff around the town.
Oh, yes. Which the place is full of barber shops now, you know. Yeah. There'll always be a trade for it, won't there?
Yeah, always will be.
Yeah, the young girls now. And then I have a daughter of my own, she taught a lot of the young barbers in the town here. She wasn't attacked there, Catherine. Yeah. When she was a young girl, I remember her coming to me and says, I didn't know where to go, which direction. I knew she'd good hands there because I could see what she had, you know, and I says, you should go for hairdressing. I was like, and she says, don't know. But I have a good think about it. And I've been on tomorrow morning, so she went to say to go, so she was the only one that ever followed down behind me after it.
Yeah.
But even this day, she's still in the tech yet.
That shows you.
All the barber shops doing new clubs there, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It shows you that, yeah. Well, Leo, looking back, would you do it again, would you? Do you think? What would you change?
Very little I would change. I must say I had a very, very good life. I had a great time with people that I knew very well, and I had turned out having a lot of very, very great family. All had a big family, 12 children, like, and they all done well for themselves. They're all right. And funny to say, my wife was from Lurgan. And her, you might think this is funny, but it's not, just right through. Her maiden name was Hare, Haare, right? And she married a barber. Right? And I have a daughter who married a barber as well. And his father would have been Tommy Bradley. He worked with his brother Lawrence in Bristol. So she married a barber.
I can't get away from it.
That's a strange one, isn't it?
There's many's a gay night from dark till daylight I spend with people of high renown. But in all their grandeur and heaps to squander, my heart would wander for Sweet Omagh Town.